Hello and welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make your own fermented sauerkraut. And it's basically cabbage and salt. That's it. But we're going to add a little bit more to it. Cabbage is traditionally used for sauerkraut because the leaves are coated with a unique bacteria. Each leaf is coated. I like a combination of the purple and the green, so you get a little diversity. You also get the richness in nutrients from each. And you just need a little technique in the chopping, which I will share with you with some overhead shots. For equipment, you'll need a really big bowl because you're going to use two kilograms of cabbage. Chopped cabbage, and a digital scale, which is essential really for getting the measurements right. If you've not made sauerkraut before, you could start with a Kilner jar, the little clip top jar, just to see if you and your family really like the results without a big investment. And then a little Ziploc bag, because you want to keep the contents, once you've gone through the process, you want to keep them submerged under the liquid, which is an anaerobic environment. And you're going to fill it to about here. And then just inflate this little bag and put that in before you close the lid, and that will keep the veg underneath. Because if it pops up above and exposed to air, that exposes it to some bad bacteria. And then of course you've got the clip top, so you can burp it every day as those gases develop. If you have made sauerkraut before, or you know you love it, then I suggest a fermenting crock. I think this is 3 liters. Lasts me forever, for months. This makes so much because you really compact it down tight. So it's a ceramic crock, and it has this trough around the lip, which you're going to fill with water, and then put the lid on, which has these little notches you see. So once you have your veg in and the weighing stones, you add water. The little notches allow the gases to escape, so you don't have to burp it, but the water keeps the bad bacteria from coming in. So it's really, really convenient and genius. It helps to keep the temperature constant as well. And then the fermenting crocks come with these stones, and you just put them in, and it weighs down the contents of the cabbage and the veg. Now I also like to add fennel to mine. Even if you don't like fennel, you're not a real fan, you don't taste it. It adds depth to the overall flavor of the sauerkraut. And I like a little bit of ginger as well. It's not much, but I'll peel it and grate it before I add it in. And I like to add caraway seeds and sometimes juniper berries. Again, you don't get that strong flavor at all. It just melds together beautifully. And you'll need something to pound it with. This I found in a lovely junk shop, or some of the fermenting crocks will come with a little pounder like this. My friends that have big hands make quick work of this, but I have fairly small hands because there's a lot of work mashing the veg once we've chopped it, and being able to pound it, because you want to break down the fibers of the cabbage or whatever veg you have in there and release the juices, and that's the liquid that the veg will be submerged in once you put it into your crock or your jar. And then also, very important, a good chopping knife, a big one, nice and sharp. It gives you more control. And this is, a great activity, great family activity. I taught sauerkraut during the episode we had a few years ago. This is 2023 if you're watching this down the road sometime, when people were home, maybe not allowed to go out much, and they were bored enough to want to learn something that they hadn't done before. So, or if you homeschool, this is a great cooking activity, food activity, as well as a little science lesson built right in. And then knife safety, because you want to chop in a certain way to get very thin strips of cabbage, so that if you have small hands, when you're breaking it down with your hands, it doesn't take forever. But my friends with big hands make really quick work of this. And then you can teach the kids about, as well as knife safety, but about the difference between good bacteria and bad bacteria. We've had such a focus on just bacteria being bad. We don't differentiate how beneficial good bacteria is to our health. Our bodies are 9 times more bacteria cells than human cells. So that'll give you an indication of how important the right bacteria are. And the good bacteria will take care of the bad guys. So when we keep our veg submerged under that anaerobic, under the liquid in that anaerobic environment, they proliferate, and we don't have to worry about the bad guys. So just controlling that environment. Also, the temperature is important. Really don't want to get above 21, which is like 72, I think. 60, which would be sort of 15. Right in between there, 60, 70, I'm doing the math in my head, 15, and what did I say, 20. Don't want it too cool. So this is very time and temperature sensitive. Too cool, it really slows down the fermenting process. It could be weeks and weeks before you get a decent ferment. Too fast, you're going to kill it. I got back from Valencia a couple months ago. Before I left, I thought, well, I'm going to be gone a week. I'll do my sauerkraut before, and then when I get back, it'll be ready in no time. And we had a heat wave in my kitchen. I don't know how hot it got, and it was so hot. My sauerkraut had mold. First time I've ever had a failure. I had to check it out. So now we're having a nice cool spell, and I'm going to put my crock under the stairs. I've got flagstone floors under there, and it keeps a constant temperature, so I don't have to worry about that. And I'll put all this at the end of the video, which you'll see with the weights and the measures and the times and all that. But just want to talk it through with you right now. And I like to ferment mine for 4 weeks. 4 weeks. I like a good, strong sauerkraut flavor, nice tangy flavor. But after a week is fine if you're not accustomed to it. And if you like the stronger tangy flavor, that's a sign that your gut bacteria is really proliferating in the right direction. And if you don't quite like it, you can retrain your taste buds as you go through this process, so that you will develop that craving or enjoy that tangier flavor after 4 weeks. And you can watch. A nice thing about the crock is I can lift the lid, because I'm just so curious, and I peek at week intervals, and you will see different bubble activity, different patterns. It's just fascinating. So it'll be a good experience for kids, and then they learn how to look after their guts. So I'll be back with some overhead shots, and we'll get started in just a second. It's a little easier to work with cabbage. Cut it in half first. And then lay it down. Get rid of any little blemishes like that. And I save a good big portion of a couple of leaves. That's helpful to put down on top of the veg before you place your stones or the little inflated bag. Probably can have more than I need, but the excess I can use in a stir fry. So there we go. And you want to, if you have a food processor, that's going to speed things up a lot, but not everybody does. So I'm trying to make it as easy and simple and cost effective to do. So you want to hold your your hand in a safe position and the knife away from your hand that you're holding it with, and just chop as thinly as possible. And you think, oh, that's going to take forever. It might take a little bit longer, but it's going to really save you when you're mashing that down and breaking through those fibers. If they're as thin as possible, it's going to save a lot of effort later on. And you know, if you're doing this with your family, this is a great time to have some conversation about what you're doing and why you're doing it. No need to be in a big rush, which I always am. So this is a nice time to sort of slow down, give your mind a little bit of a rest. This crazy world we're in. Put some music on, whatever, and just enjoy the process. I like to imagine civilizations doing this probably as a family. Certainly not to be sexist, but probably the girls are in the kitchen doing this. Passed down from generations. Grandma or the old lady in the village. And I love these traditions which we are going back to, aren't we? Learning how to look after our bodies so that we don't have to fear disease. We don't have to rush off to the doctor. Too many people are realizing drugs aren't the only answer. I probably shouldn't go into that, but they are necessary sometimes. But our body is designed to heal. And these good bacteria were put here for us for a reason. And we look after those bacteria, they will look after us. Something else that's important is to make sure your bowl is obviously clean, but don't get overly concerned about, you know, overly cleaning it, but make sure you rinse it really well so there's no residue of washing up liquid. Take care how you wash your hands. Don't over sanitize. That sounds like, oh, she's crazy, but your hand has bacteria on the palm of your hand that's different from the back of your hand, and we are really mixing our bacteria with these bacteria, and you know, to get the result. So we are growing bugs, so we don't want chemicals that will kill the bugs. Making sure your veg is organic and not sprayed with toxins, at least if you get it from a farmer who says he doesn't spray or they don't spray. That's fine for me because it will yield a much better ferment. Also, it's been found that sauerkraut helps to neutralize, I don't know the exact right term for it, but it helps to get any glyphosate that we might be exposed to from settling in our cells. Now, we don't always know when we've been exposed. We can't see it, taste it, or smell it, but we all are exposed. Even, I dare say, some organic veg just from the runoff. So this is great. There are other ways to detox glyphosate from our bodies on a continual basis as well. But sauerkraut is great. Of course, you don't eat it with every meal every day, so there are other things to do. But it's nice to know there is a real power in sauerkraut. I mean, obviously it's been around for how many generations, so there must be a reason for it. So I'm going to start on the other bit of this. I just don't want to get, you know, this hard core in there. That's just going to be very hard to break down It's, I don't know. I just don't add it in. You can also add grated carrots if you want. I put flowers in mine, edible flowers. You know, search some recipes and see, get some other veg ideas, and share ideas with your friends as well. So I'm going to get chopping, speed this up, and start filling my bowl. Oh, it's just wonderful stuff. I've run out. I would show you the finished product, but I ate all mine thinking I was going to have lovely sauerkraut when I got home from Valencia. I didn't, so too bad about that. And I saved the fennel for later. It doesn't break down quite as easily. So I leave the cabbage to rest, as you'll see. We're going to fill that bowl. Then we're going to sprinkle it with the salt. So 2 kilograms of veg. Sorry about the knife, is a bit loud, isn't it? 2 kilograms of cabbage and 3 tablespoons of sea salt. I like pink Himalayan sea salt. You can get a Celtic sea salt that you know is not from a contaminated sea these days. That's all right. I have some from Scotland, and the salt water is collected on the thorn plant and dried, and that's in a very remote area, so I use that sometimes. But for sauerkraut, I like the pink Himalayan because they don't spray up there. There's no reason to. So for now, that's my go-to salt. I like to just mix the colors together a little bit. This is just the cabbage, purple and the green, and sprinkle it with sea salt. And again, I like the pink Himalayan because it's not subjected to toxins from the ocean, and it's loaded with minerals. That's the iron gives it that pink color. So you want to mix it in really well, really get down to the bottom, and we're going to leave it for about an hour, and that is going to help break down the fibers of the cabbage, which helps with my small hands so I don't have to work so hard. You don't have to wait, but I find I have plenty to do. Maybe I chop my fennel so I can add it after I've broken down these fibers a little bit. I don't wait till the very end because I need to break down the fennel too, but I just don't add it right now. The fennel doesn't really add much to the fermentation process itself, like the cabbage does. There's not a lot of point in putting it in right now, so I think I've got down right to the bottom. And you can see why you need a really good sized bowl, but it's going to be quite surprising how it diminishes by the time you finished the process of breaking it down to release those liquids. So I'm going to cover it with a tea towel. I'll be back in an hour. So we've let our cabbage rest. Let's see what it looks like. Can you see how much it's already compressed? And I see juice at the bottom of the bowl, and that's just from resting. So now I'm going to give it just like massage, like kneading, almost like kneading dough. You can hear it crunch. And it feels very wet. the salt breaking down the fibers. If you have someone with big hands, as I mentioned before, that really helps. But look, can you see that juice already forming just from resting? And it'd be good if you do have children, they can take it in turns. So this is a process you really can't rush. So even if you do have a food processor for the chopping, this is still very much a part of the process. And I think it's nice because it isn't something that can be rushed. Look how much, I mean, you can just see it going down, down, down. So it looks like, oh, I'm not going to have that much sauerkraut. But in actual fact, and I don't need the chopping board, did I? In actual fact, it makes more than you might realize. You compact it down into the crock, but then when it's finished its process and you get your lovely sauerkraut out, you don't need to eat a bowl full of this. Having, oh gosh, just a few tablespoonfuls with, you know, lunch and dinner. You might not want it for breakfast, but just a small amount with each meal really aids your digestion. And God, look at the juice. It's wonderful. And that's also aided by fresh organic cabbages. The fresher, the better, the more juice that they will have. So here's what we do with the little pounding stick. That helps. This one came with my crock. This one has a bigger surface area, which helps. I've never put chilies in my sauerkraut. I don't know if I would like all of it being hot, but I might make a smaller amount. Maybe put some chilies in. I wonder what the fermenting would do for the flavor. I sort of got the idea for that when I saw fermented jalapenos at the health food shop this week. So I'm going to try that. It's really delicious. It retained its heat and the flavor of the jalapenos, which really is my favorite chili. And I guess more things were fermented ages ago, before they had refrigeration. Refrigeration has sort of killed our way of preserving food. That brings out more of its health properties. I make sourdough bread, which is, again, the fermentation process. Wheat has a different bacteria. When you actually ferment it for several days, 3 days if you're celiac, you know, it modifies the gluten so that most celiacs, sort of 95% of the ones that we've tested, are able to enjoy sourdough bread, and has so many benefits for your gut. So that's really coming along. So now I'm going to add the fennel, incorporate that in, because it, as I said, it doesn't really ferment very well, and it won't break down the same, but it will be surprisingly broken down by the time these little bacteria do their thing. And it's sort of like a pre-digestion, and that's what happens when you're making sourdough bread. Is the fermentation process from just wheat, flour, and salt pre-digest it. Well, it modifies the gluten, first of all, so that people who are gluten sensitive don't have that issue. And it's sort of a pre-digestion that also modifies the phytic acid. And phytic acid can inhibit our absorption of nutrients from our food. So the refrigeration really has interfered with our digestion, I think, a lot more than we realize. And science is now focusing so much on gut bacteria. I was listening to a talk on different species. So you've got the genus and the species and the strain of bacteria. So focusing on those specific strains and what they do. There's even some bacteria strains that help prevent wrinkles, you know, because it's sustaining the structure of our skin below the surface. Really fascinating. So I think I'm really close to putting this in the crock now. So now I'm going to add my ginger. Not a lot, maybe a tablespoonful. And I'll put a tablespoon of caraway seeds. And just do a little more crushing, maybe a little more pounding. Oh, it's starting to smell good already. That's another thing, when you're going through this process, whether you're at the clip top jar and you want to just burp it, or whether you're using a fermenting crock, and if you're working with kids, have them have a little smell of what this is like at this stage, and then after a week, and observe those bubbles, and then after a couple of weeks. And I like a 4-week ferment, between that 60 and 70, sort of 15-20 degree range, and play around with the smells and the flavors, and observing the bubbles and the patterns those bubbles make. Just fascinating. Okay, so I'm going to get my crock and we'll fill it up. I'll fill up the crock. Just I rinsed my hands because I had to get my crock, but I wouldn't wash them. Don't wash your hands with soap, I would say, before you start mashing your veg. That might sound disgusting to some, but we don't want any soap residues. And the good bacteria on the palm of your hands is going to take care of an awful lot. So unless you've been handling harsh chemicals or meat or something that you think would warrant a good wash, then don't worry about it. In fact, one lady that I did a fermenting class with had just a selection of all sorts of things she'd fermented. And when she finished one jar, she would just put something else in there. And some of us are like, you didn't wash that first? And she's like, no, don't worry about it. We are way too hygienic these days. Way too much. And let the good bacteria have something to do. Keep them busy. And don't wash your cabbages. Don't wash your cabbages. Peel the outer layer. That you know, I peeled some off of this that were sort of a bit ratty and had maybe some damaged leaves. So I peeled those off, but the ones on the inside, you know, like this, that's lovely, perfectly fine. And now I'm pressing this down to really compact it. You want to get all the air out. All the air out. So push it down firmly, firmly, firmly. See, it's really shrinking down, compacting down. All that massive bowl of cabbage I had starting out. And look at it now. And it's a good couple of inches away from this neck. You want to have some breathing room. You also want to have room to be able to get those stones in. And I'm going to just press. I'm going to press again once we get the stones in, but right now I'm pressing the air out. We don't want any air down there. And really get it away from the sides. Really get it down there. And now I will place a couple of leaves in on the top. This just helps to, as you'll see with the stone having that little circle in the center, somebody might take advantage and sort of creep up the top. So I'm just gonna put a few of these in. Now, fun thing to do, I would say if you're doing this for the first time, do it for the first time without playing around, but getting the sort of the crinkly, I think it's a Chinese cabbage, and while you're still in the process of the fermentation, put some of those whole Chinese cabbage leaves in and let them ferment and attract that flavor. And they'll soften a lot too. And take them out, and then you can add like goat's cheese. You could add chives or something, and roll that up in that cabbage leaf, secure it with a cocktail stick, and then slice it, and makes a lovely little hors d'oeuvres, little fermented hors d'oeuvres. So now you can see why I left the space I did, because you need to be able to get that stone in and then get the other half in and be able to get them out when you finish as well. So there they are in situ, and you can use your fist. See how I push down and more of the liquid just comes right up, and that keeps any sauerkraut from floating to the surface, you know, in that hole. So, and I will keep an eye on it. Good idea to use this dowel when you check on it, because you know, right now the cabbage is a bit springy, and it will start to submit as it breaks down. So just check on it and use your dowel to keep pushing it down. There we are. Really great amount of liquid there. That goes on the top. I will pour a little water around it, and that'll keep the bad bacteria from little interlopers from ruining our fun. And there we go. So I will come back in a week's time and show you what we have. Bye for now.